Today's guest is somebody who's very special, who holds a lot of importance across the world. Is she here with us? As soon as she's here, then I'll introduce her at length. But I hope you guys are excited for the session. IMON's Global Perspective session. We are excited. We're super excited. Excellent. Excellent. So I'm excited to introduce somebody who's of course won the 2023 Nobel Prize in Medicine, and along with every other scientific award that you can possibly think of, whether it's the Lasker, the Rosenthal, and she's also been nominated in the 100 most influential people in the world by the Time magazine. The Glamour magazine noted her as the Woman of the Year. And whilst dabbling in science, she's somehow managed to raise a daughter who is a gold medalist and an Olympic champion. So she's gone through her fair share of setbacks whilst practicing her field, but somehow miraculously come on top. And that is what I want to chat with her about. Of course, about her field, of course, about the discovery because of which we have the COVID vaccine, but also how she tackled adversity. Because I think in our country and world over, we talk a lot about success, but it's also important to focus on adversity, failures, and how to deal with those failures. So today's conversation is going to be a lot about that. As I introduce her with the final line, I must say that we as young people believe that the most powerful messenger is the WhatsApp messenger, but she came out with one which was slightly more powerful called messenger RNA. To know a little more about messenger RNA, the work that she did, and how it's contributed to changing your and my life, please welcome to the second episode of A Global Perspective by INUN, none other than Dr. Katalin Karikó.
Thank you. Thank you very much. While you were introducing me, I showed my gold medal. Just, this is the Nobel Prize. Just, the student could see this is how it will look when they get one.
And we can see already so many hearts and so many claps and applauses coming for you. It's 7 p.m. in India and we have 500 people who are excited to watch you live. So firstly, I know that you are doing a multitude of things. So thank you very much for taking the time and doing this.
Thank you for inviting me.
But let me start with the first question, which is, today you are a Nobel Prize winner, but I'm sure, and today you're accepted world over, but I'm sure life was not as easy when you started out. I've read reports that, your funding was cut when you were in university. In fact, you were not given the tenured professor position in some universities, and you faced a lot of adversity. So can we start off, if you don't mind, by you sharing the most difficult time in your life as a student, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, actually, if you start, even I can go to my childhood, because I grew up in a small house. We lived in one room. We had no running water. We had no refrigerator, television. So there were no distraction, no iPhone and other things to look at. So anyway, and that way was, and my parents only had elementary school education. And so I was not surrounded by professors. And so it is, it was a long, long way to come here. But I left Hungary because actually I was terminated in Hungary in my position. And here in the United States, several times I was, kicked out. And even 10 years before I got the Nobel Prize, I was kicked out from University of Pennsylvania. So was for me to survive all of these things was important that when I was in high school, I was just 16 years old, we learned from Hans Scheyer, who was Hungarian and who demonstrated that the stress can kill you. And he was a stress investigator. And we learned that how to handle stress. And he wrote a book about. And that was helped me, every time when people were very negative or they were critical, I always decide whether it is constructive criticism or whether it is just nasty. and then I could completely can eliminate those. And so um, learning how to handle stress, and people are relating differently, that was the most important. So
Learning how to
uh,
manage stress.
well, I might say also that when you know when I last time I was sent away, so I would tell the students that don't let other people to define them. You
Mm.
know, people say nasty things, but you have to know your values and you have to believe in yourself, and that's what is critical.
No, and what you shared about your humble beginnings, and then how you've dealt with the most difficult thing, which is mental health issues, and how you reacted in the face of adversity is, of course, very promising to know. In India, we deal with a lot of societal expectations. So
Mm.
I can say, at least for myself, as soon as my sister was born, the family knew that what she's going to do for the rest of her life. So before that, as soon as the child is born, they know that the child needs to do something. So there's a lot of societal pressure in Southeast Asian families, not just in our country. And my question to you in this regard is that a lot of young people are watching, the young girls,
Mhm.
uh, and they would perhaps want to get into the field of molecular biology or
Mhm.
medicine. What advice would you have to them um, when society expects them to do other things in comparison to pursuing their academia?
I was lucky that I didn't had any family pressure because my father was butcher, and there were not many women butcher there. So they just encourage us and my sister to uh, study well, and they knew the education importance. But I don't know the family pressure in another country, how they can deal with it. But and you have to understand that I did not have a vision that, oh, RNA and delivery. I was always just given a task, and I just tried to do my best. Whatever was, nature were putting in my way, I tried my best. And but I could tell the women that, as I myself, I didn't have to decide whether to pursue career or have a family, because I had both. And you can manage it. It is just, I can tell the women that, first of all, get a good guy, husband, because without my husband, I wouldn't be here. So if it's important. And don't try to be perfect, the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect daughter. No, you cannot do that. That's okay if not to be perfect. I didn't overdote it my daughter. She learned early on she had to be vacuuming and doing, chores around the house, because that's what I did when I was growing up. So that's what my suggestion, first of all. And I don't know the other things, how the family can pressure somebody.
No, no. Sometimes I meant, sometimes it happens that the family has very high expectations, but those expectations are sometimes different. It's more like, why do you want to study so much? Why? What will you do eventually by studying so many years, etc. And what you answered, of course, in a way, in terms of having a supporting family is very important, but also to communicate that you want to do this and you will persevere and do this per se. And of course, having an able mate at an appropriate age, like you said, is very important. But I want to also ask you about your grant proposals, because there are some college students also who are part of this. There are high school and college students who are part of this. And a lot of your grant proposals were rejected. And
All of
promotions,
them.
sorry,
All of them.
all, you're saying it. I didn't want to say it, but yes, all of them were rejected. And somehow in the face of that, and in the promotions were denied, but you never gave up on mRNA. Somehow this was not a field which was mainstream, which was accepted, but you kept persevering. Now it's a easy thing, in retrospect to say, but when you are doing something that nobody believes it, like, when I started IIMan, my parents didn't understand what you were doing, and till date they don't understand much of what I'm doing. But they're much more supportive, of course, now. But the idea that how do you persevere in the face of such complete and abject rejection?
I have to say, when my proposals were rejected and I was reading the criticism, and I say, oh, they are stupid, they don't understand. I emphasize, okay, they do not understand. Yeah. because I didn't explain well. So, the philosophy of handling the stress is this stoic philosophy that always, you have to always ask what I can do. Because you can say, oh, they should accept my papers, they should accept my proposal, but you cannot force other people to do something because the stress is coming from that you always wanted somebody else to do something. Your husband, your children, your neighbors, somebody, should do something else. But you have to always find what I can do. So every time when I was reading the rejection, I always found something. Yeah, they are right. I didn't write well. They did probably could not understand. And then next time I will ask her help, to read through whether they understand. So it was always this criticism was there, but I was taking it and learning from it. And I could not survive without funding, but I couldn't convince the authorities to give me the money. But at least I always convinced one colleague who had some funding to give me enough to survive, and my husband was fixing centrifuge, whatever other people throw out, in the hallway. I scattered around, and took home, and he fixed it. And so that's how I could manage it. And one thing is, I could see the progress in my work. And other people just, when I said I work with RNA, they felt sorry because they hated working with RNA. It always degrades. Oh, poor Kate, I hate working RNA. It degrades. And I said, no, no, you have to be careful. And so I could see the progress. So that's why I didn't give up.
You could see the progress yourself, and you had a friend who would always help you with
Yeah.
the pecuniary part of it in a way. And that's so the key is to have a rich friend. But no, on a lighter note, of course.
Yeah.
But
Who has funding?
who
Yeah.
has funding? Who has funding? No, no, but you mentioned something about stoicism. I've done my little bit of reading on stoicism, and I believe a lot in that philosophy in a way. But who, if I may, sorry to digress a little bit, who's your favorite of the Stoic philosophers? Is Seneca who is one that you would
Oh,
recommend that young people should read?
Marcus Aurelius.
Sorry.
Mhm. And I found this always helpful that I ask the question what I can do. Right now, here in the US, we have this situation. I analyze how did we get here and now what I can do, educate the public, because that's why is we are here where we are in the United States right now.
No, and thank you for educating the public and educating young people. And therefore, let me come to the question in terms of educating young people. This conversation, of course, the ones who are watching are science students, they're all smarter than me, but it's
Mhm.
also going to travel far and wide to 1 lakh schools across the country, 100,000 schools across India. And
Mhm.
these institutions will also, many of them will perhaps play it in their schools. So if you were to explain the concept of messenger RNA and its functionality to a high school student who's not necessarily from a science background, how would you do it, if I may?
Yeah, so messenger RNA not something I discovered, or invented. It was not invented. Nature invented, in every cell in our body we have this present. It's very short-lived product, and it is copy of the DNA which we have in our chromosome, and carries the information what protein to make. And we are made of protein and of course lipid and other things, but those protein which the messenger RNA is coding for can make other things like lipids and sugars and other things. So it is a message from the nucleus, from the chromosome to the protein synthesis factory. And this is a blueprint what to make.
It's a blueprint and it helps fight the disease before actually fighting the disease.
For example, or the messenger RNA itself is naturally in your body, and that's you have to every minute, second, you zillions of protein you make, and they degrade, and messenger RNA is always there. Yeah.
So can I use an example? And please correct me if I'm wrong, but an
Okay.
analogy from Harry Potter comes to mind, where there was in one of the books in Harry Potter, there was a boggart that in the defense against dark arts, their professor basically took out a boggart and said, now go and fight the boggart first. And the boggart used to basically turn into your biggest fear. So if you were scared of, say, cockroaches, it would turn into a cockroach. Or if you were scared of snakes, it would turn into a snake. And then the person would have to make sure that you deal with this first. And so it would prepare you if ever the actual snake would come. So the boggart would not be the snake, but if the actual virus would ever come, then you are better prepared. Am I correct in understanding that this is something similar to that?
The messenger RNA, what we used as a vaccine, you have to understand that the virus also has a messenger RNA, just it had so many more genes, and we are selecting only the one gene from this messenger RNA, which the virus also has messenger RNA in its structure, which can help to teach the immune system how to recognize when the real danger is coming, because when the real virus is entering.
And so of course it has multiple utilities, and this is one of the many utilities that it has. But most students and most researchers before your breakthroughs know mRNA as the central dogma, as just the messenger. What made you believe that this fragile molecule essentially could one day be turned into medicine?
When I started even in Hungary, that always something, my supervisor came from the industry and we tried to make an antiviral compound, which was a short RNA. And somehow it was in my mind always that what I am doing has to be some usefulness. What could be useful? When there was a messenger RNA and I could deliver to the cells, and I could see that the protein is made, I thought that maybe there are some disease. At that point, I was no idea what disease would be useful. And like my daughter who was a rower and she had all of these blisters, I was thinking that maybe some collagen 8 messenger RNA would be useful to put into the blisters and quickly heal, generating extracellular matrix or something. So, the messenger RNA quickly degrades, but some protein like extracellular matrix protein, they are there for half a year. So I thought that maybe this would be useful. And I thought that one day everybody in their refrigerator will have some messenger RNA and they are cooking and burning their hands and they reach out for this collagen 7 mRNA and put in there, quickly heal.
And they quickly heal. And you healed the world in a way. You were the reason why the world healed, per se, in COVID. And thank you for that.
A lot of people, you have to emphasize so many people, those people who, my colleagues, people who I learned from, and people who I read their papers, contributed to all, because this is a team sport to be scientist.
It is. And that is your humility and magnanimity to say that. But of course, it is a team sport, as any good invention over time in the field of science is. But I must ask you, there's also a lot of, during the time of COVID, a lot of people in India and across the world, some athletes like Novak Djokovic, who's one of my favorite tennis players for his tennis, they said that one should not take the vaccine because the vaccine is not going to help you and may cause you it may cause you harm. Now, there was a huge lobby of anti-vaxxers for a while, at least. What would you say to people who yet believe that vaccines are not needed in order to cure the human body, and we have already within us the ability in order to deal with situations such as these?
Yeah, there were people who said that, I am strong physically and I don't need the vaccine. And some get infected and get over it and they give the interview. You see, I get infected and I am fine. But those people who were not fine, they were in the 6 feet under and they couldn't give interviews that, hey, I thought that I am strong. My immune system is very strong. And they couldn't give, okay, I am dead. They couldn't give interviews. And so you have to understand that all medical intervention has some other unwanted effects. And because these are who are vaccinating, those are not all of them healthy people. They have other things are ongoing in their, sorry, ongoing in their bodies, so that the vaccine has an immune stimulant, and then it can make it worse, or it can be beneficial. So they were not understanding, like even not understanding that you are a young healthy person and go for a vaccination, and after that you go to the soccer practice. You have to understand that now that you have to be in the you have in a situation that you were infected. You have to go home and lay down. Ladies, don't start a big cleaning project, nothing. You have to rest, because you go to an exercise, you injure your muscle, and you have a stimulant an adjuvant in your body. And it will see that as an injury, so the basic understanding. But it was, I have to say, even 100 years ago already, people claim that everything what they were never grateful for the vaccine, that they didn't get the disease, but they were blaming everything else what came after. Like, 24 people complained that they get pregnant from the vaccine. They said, I was not pregnant before, but they did other things, and or they get syphilis, for example, from the vaccine. Of course, they did other things, and then they claim. Obviously, there are harmful things, like somebody has an injury and it can be worse, some inflammation of the joint.
So you said something very important. You said that towards the end, you mentioned that it can also get worse. So was by taking the vaccine, was there a possibility of of for people whose body type may not react well to it? Do you think that they should have taken the vaccine, or do you think the vaccine was 100% safe and everybody should have taken it?
I believe that it is 100% safe.
100%.
And there were people who had actually more chance to get infected and get more serious, like people who get operation and other autoimmune disease and other things. And it is, I am not creating authority that authority says, okay, everybody who is in the healthcare should get it because, people are coming here and you can infect them. Or in elderly homes, when somebody get infected, 1/3 of the elderly people were dead if they get infected. So, but I wouldn't force to anybody. If somebody feels that, I don't believe. The thing is get, like, for example, after inflammation, you get immunosuppression, and people, but not just mRNA vaccine, any vaccine, they can get,
Right.
for example, shingles, elderly people, because you immune suppress the varicella zoster, that virus, but it can come out, after vaccination. But it's not mRNA. It is any vaccination can cause that. And so what we have not that we didn't explain to the people that what is the mRNA? Actually, the virus itself has an mRNA in it, and many other live vaccine contains mRNA.
Correct, correct. And prevention is better than cure, is what I was told
Yes.
growing up. So
Mhm.
therefore, I understand what you are trying to say. But COVID, of course, was the tip of the iceberg. You have mentioned this publicly as well, that mRNA and what it did for COVID was just the start and is the beginning. How do you see the next big breakthroughs come about, and what would be the areas where the next big breakthroughs would come through your research? Would it be cancer, heart disease, or something else?
All of these, and now you can see human trial, 150 human trial is ongoing, and you can see that autoimmune diseases already in phase 3 for different autoimmune disease using mRNA program CAR T cells with mRNA. And on the cancer field, it's not just vaccines, but messenger RNA coding for antibodies would make already existing therapy where the antibody is very expensive would be affordable. And that's what's important about the mRNA. It's so cheap to make. And so it is make protein therapy affordable if you deliver the mRNA and the body will generate the therapeutic protein.
So it's basically going to have far-reaching consequences, and it is also
Yes.
easy and very scalable, and therefore it can be used for multiple things. But whilst you were developing this entire, whilst you were going through the entire process, from my myopic understanding, it's not just biology, but you also needed chemistry, nanotechnology, immunology, the knowledge of all of these fields. And we discussed Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, but the idea that you seem to be having and have had a lot of interdisciplinary knowledge across fields. What is the importance of that at a very young formative age, or do you think that that can pick up later on in life? Is it important to generalize first, or is it important to specialize first?
In my case, as an undergraduate student, I want to work in this big biological research center. That was my dream. And I was interested in plants, but the only opening was in the lipid team. And lipid was so boring, but that's what I started. And then they thought that, I thought that I would be at the bench. And then they sent me to the field trip, isolate lipids from fish and collect some little creatures from the pond. But then when I went back to the lab, scientists were started to make liposome, delivering DNA and other things. And so I learned from them and I participated. That was my one of the first paper, that making liposome. So I learned so many about lipids and how to make films and other. And then all of a sudden, just a guy from the RNA team walk in and says that, are you interested to do your PhD in RNA team? I said, okay, nobody invited me. So it was nothing that I had this visionary. It is just coming and you learn about, little creatures, you learn lipids, now you learn RNA, you learn how to synthesize, how to modify, and then your knowledge is just increasing, and then you want to understand how the RNA is made naturally, where the nucleosides are coming, and many other things, the translation and virology and other things. And it's just coming, and you always try to, learn as much as possible from that field.
So learn as much as possible from whichever field comes across your way, and
Yes.
try to. And I'm pretty sure that you are a voracious reader, and that you read everything apart from even the field of science. Uh,
I'm not everything, but I try my best.
right, and the idea that it's important to read and research per se, but today for young people in the field of science, the culture in a place such as our country, and also in different parts of the world, even in the most competitive universities, it is the world of publish or perish. That you must
Mhm.
publish at a very young age, and you must do groundbreaking, revolutionary work, which is short-term success over the long-term risky research which one would perhaps want to do. So my question to you is, how does a young person balance this when everybody is pushing you to get results quickly, but you persevered on a subject area for decades before its breakthrough? And that is very difficult to do. So in today's hyper competitive world, if Katalin Karikó was going to start all over at 18 in 2025, what would your advice be to that 18-year-old?
I have to say that I never published in my life 100 papers. Everybody is 200, 300. No, because I had no help. So I did the experiment with my own hands. And if you do your own hands and you write yourself, you cannot publish every week,
Hmm.
something. So that uh, I know that they counted the references and other things. I did not care.
Hmm.
And I know for the Nobel, no, none of my paper were in Science or Nature. It was nucleic acid research or molecular therapy, and they are very happy. So in these days, it's not publishing something which is untrue or which is not finished.
Hmm.
I did not see as an advantage because there are so many papers, and the young one now is facing that there are so many fake papers, which is made in paper mills, and they don't know. So what I did, I usually believe in the quality of work in some people, and then I follow them, in PubMed or in Google. Um, and set up for alert for them if they publish something. So that's for them it is difficult. Coming for the United States for me was the biggest advantage. I never wanted to come here, okay, but I was terminated. I eventually ended up here. For me, it was that in 1985 I could listen to lectures. You have to remember that YouTube is just 2005.
Correct.
85, there were nothing, no PubMed, no
Correct.
nothing. And so it is, for me, I had to go to the library, find a book, an older paper to, and now on the laptop, you can read everything.
Mm.
But you don't know what to read, what to watch, what lecture. So it is, you have to follow your advisor's advice on who lectures you should listen and what papers you should read that is reliable. So it is difficult. Now it is too many things, and that time, 40 years ago, we had to drive 1 hour to New Jersey to watch somebody talk.
And now we can talk to you from different parts of the world and connect to you
Yes.
and hear your thoughts live. And of course, the power of technology and the way it is going is, of course, unprecedented. But you spoke about something very important, which again is slightly outside the domain area, but it's too much information. It's
Yeah.
too much of, and therefore to be able to discern what is necessary vis-a-vis what just is simply frivolous and takes up one's time is also very important. What are the skills, according to you, when it comes to research, or just generally, what are the skills that young scientists should have and prepare themselves with in order to be able to meet the intersection of science and society 20 years from now?
I find it very important to be able to perform an experiment, the
Hmm,
bench work,
hmm,
and understand the biology behind it. So, when you work with a radioactive material and you use the Geiger counter, you have to understand how it works, what it measures, because you go to the scintillation counter and it measures differently. And then, if you don't understand what you are measuring, what is the principle of those things? So I found this very important to understand what you are doing and the techniques. So I mastered many techniques. So when at the age 58, I went to Germany, and BioNTech, I didn't went to the lab because I said, I can do everything better than anybody there because I did all in my life. I was, culturing the bacteria, plasmid isolate. I did everything myself. I poured beautiful gels and I even, sequenced DNA when it was that time. So I could mastered many techniques. And I always, when there is some technology like sequencing is coming commercial and I can immediately drop it. Not just that I know very nicely to do, who cares? It is my time. So I mastered another technique, another. And then every time when I was doing something that, oh, I should purify somehow this long RNA, and I always, okay, maybe this technique, because it was so many things in my mind. And again, AI you can ask, but if it is not in your mind to these different techniques, then it is dangerous. And I usually, use my natural intelligence, my brain, to think and to perform. But I found this very important to be able to perform experiment and, I had actually a quote there from Leonardo da Vinci on the wall that experiments never err, only your expectation. You did an experiment and you expected the result for a different one. So you just have to able to explain the result. And for that one, you start reading because, I relied on my own experimental skills. So I knew that I didn't mix up these and those. And so then I had to come in, okay, how can I explain what kind of idea, what hypothesis explains the outcome? And then when I had the hypothesis, I tried to punch holes on it, that it is not, turn it over and made experiment for it. And then I couldn't, then it seems, okay, maybe that's what is going on. And that is so exciting things, you imagine, oh my God, this is it. And then, reading a lot of things, you always come up, okay, maybe there is a precedence for that. And then you are, have this knowledge. maybe AI has the knowledge, but it has to be in your mind to connect to it. And so it is so fascinating things to do with your hands, to do those experiments. And who would imagine to be so happy to see a band, which doesn't play any music. It is just a little something there. And it was, oh, that's it. I got it.
No,
Yeah, it is fun.
absolutely. And the experiments must continue. The experiments must continue, and whether or not people appreciate those experiments, that does not matter, as long as you are learning everything hands-on. I think what you said is very important. Don't outsource everything to the artificial intelligence. It's the actual intelligence that will determine how far you go. And therefore, whether the world celebrates you as a Da Vinci or a Katalin Karikó, or later on celebrates you as a Van Gogh after his death, the important thing is that you continue to experiment. And therefore, I take that away from your answer, and I hope all the students have as well. But successful experiments, Dr. Karikó, lead to patents. And I must come to this because you spoke about the commercialization of science in a way, in your conversation.
Yes.
Do you think that the successful experiments which have become patents, should they be patents when it comes to life-saving medicines per se, like say in the case of COVID, or do you think that it is necessary in a small way? What are your thoughts?
Yes, I have to say that when we discovered that we can make non-immunogenic RNA with Drew
Right.
Weissman, we thought that, oh, we want everybody to use it. We don't want to license. But then, the patent office explained also that then nobody will develop anything. Nobody will do anything if you don't have a patent on it, because they had to invest money and they cannot collect back what they invested if they no way to protect. So Ugo Zahin, my CEO at BioNTech, used to say that every drug will be as expensive as the clinical trial, because you have to pay for the clinical trial to prove that really the drug is helping the cancer patient, shrinking the tumor, and you have to pay for the medicine, the doctors, the patient. You have to spend so much money. And then if you get the result that it is working and the next day anybody can do it, you have no way of attracting money, investors' money to do the trial, because they said, I cannot collect back. That's good. Money is gone and we are done. So that's the understanding is. And of course, it expires 20 years later, expires, and everybody can use it. I lived in a very small budget in my life. I never wanted, any outcome from it. And, when I get award money, I gave it out
I
to
know.
the
As
universities and others. So I don't want money, but I understand that you cannot have investors unless you have some time, because you have the invention. You have to make a company, because nobody will walk in and say, oh, pseudouridine, oh, that's a great idea. I will do that. I will invest in. You have to make. So we made the company ourselves and try to, help to
it,
prove things. Yeah.
it is
So, but that's the reason. That's the reason.
it is the nature of the capitalist society of our of that we live in, that it is important, in order to, am I correct in understanding that also in a small way, that in order to get people involved and in order to do things on scale, it is not it is not necessarily in our hands alone, because when we want to scale things at that juncture, bioethics and equity and how it is perceived by those who are contributing in terms of pecuniary transactions might be slightly different, and therefore to attract them, it is also necessary to hold these patents. Am I correct in understanding that as well?
Yes, so you don't get investors. People will not give you the money to run trial, and running the trial, and it takes time. And the lifespan of a patent is 20 years. So you discover something you patented, like we did in 2006. Next year is expires. Most of the time, the clinical trial takes much, much longer. And the end of it, there will be maybe 1 or 2 years to collect. And it is not that the product is expensive, it is the clinical trial. You are paying for it. That's the reason. And then, next year, everybody can use whatever they want to develop modified RNA.
Absolutely. And the reason why we wrote to you from a lot of your colleagues is because we know that you have contributed more, you've done more for society and very less for self. And therefore, all the many awards that are there and the accolades on the left and the right hand side of you. So I'm very grateful that you have done this conversation. But before, my last question to you is a small rapid fire. So I want you to answer this it's a light-hearted one. One rejection letter that you now laugh about. One rejection letter that you now laugh about.
Yeah. Um, uh, Most of the time it said, the RNA is stable, it will never be useful, and you don't have the skill. That's most of the grant was that I don't have the skill. Who will supervise you?
Okay, that you don't have the skill. They had written that you
I
don't
don't
have the
have the
skill or the
skill.
skills.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
I don't have the knowledge, and then who will supervise me? And yeah, so that's
Wow, wow. And now you can obviously laugh about it and in retrospect. But what's harder, explaining mRNA to politicians or to children?
yeah. So
Or between
that's
the two,
what.
which is harder?
Yeah, so interesting. The politicians, when you explain to them and everything you say about science in private, they agree with you, but then they go to out and then they say the opposite because their goal is to be re-elected.
Their
And
goal is to be. And you can see
yes,
you can
and
see the number of people laughing.
yeah, I know, but that's what unfortunate. We can
If
cry also.
we can cry also, correct. If mRNA were a movie, what genre would it be? Would it be drama? Would it be a thriller? Or would it be a superhero movie?
Oh, I think would be an crime investigation. We are investigators. In my book I mentioned many times, Colombo, because you are going after something, you are watching little traces, and then you change course that where you go, and the end of it, we don't find the perpetrator of the crime. We find, the solution for something. And it would be if anything I watch on TV is usually real crime or how they could figure out from a tiny clue who is the bad guy. I
Who's the
mean
bad guy?
that's and we are a researcher, not searcher. Our name is not searcher. We are because we repeat so many times the experiment. We have an observation and then we have to make sure that what we are seeing is true. And so it is, we are researcher and we are investigators,
You are
going up.
investigators and researchers like crime reporters. But
Yes.
well, if you could give one vaccine to the world right now against disease, ignorance, or fear, which one would you choose between disease, ignorance, and fear? If you were to give a vaccine to the
Oh,
world, which one would you choose?
stupidity was not an option against because many people ask me to develop a vaccine against stupidity because that's we need badly.
Oh goodness. Well, and when I say the following before this, if your lab fridge could talk, because you spoke about your lab fridge, if your lab fridge could talk, what secret would it spill?
Oh, if the lab,
If the fridge in your laboratory could
yeah,
talk, your laboratory's fridge could talk, what
oh,
one secret would it spill about Dr. Karikó that we don't know?
oh, um, uh, yeah, that could say, how I was cleaning. I had the broom and other things. I did everything in this lab, but uh, one interesting thing, not the fridge would not know about it, but I have to say that once we have run to a meeting with Drew Weissman, and we had to use the trolley. We never used before, but turned out that we need coins, and we didn't have coins. We just had bills, and he looked around, and the only shop was there in this is a sex shop. And Drew told me that I should go in. So I went with the $20 bill to get coins, in the sex shops in daylight. And he was loitering in the street waiting for me. I never been in my life, but I get the coins, and we went to this research meeting. So for science, we do
Amazing.
so many things. I was afraid first that I have to purchase something, something cheap, because I had just $20 and get back some coins, but I didn't have to buy anything. But for science, even I did that sacrifice, all kind of sacrifice we
You
do.
sacrificed everything. Sorry.
Nobody would know about this
Nobody.
story.
This is a very interesting story, and thank you for sharing it with us. When I say that, what is the first word that comes to your mind when I say Nobel Prize?
Oh, listen, this is a celebration or something comes to mind, but I have to tell all of the students, please do not set up goals to get a prize, any prize, because if you are stoic, you have to say I have to set up a goal depends on outcome on me, and getting any award, it depends on the people who are voting. In Nobel Prize is 50 people in Caroline Institute in Sweden, in Karolinska Institute. So who they vote, it depends on their day or whatnot. I don't know, but you have to focus on science and to understand better, the science, because it will be always there. And then if somebody is publishing similar things, you don't get disappointed, because you can see, oh, okay, we learn more, because your goal should be to understand nature better and not to publish in nature, because today the people publish in nature. That's their goal. But 100 years ago, to understand nature.
You need to understand nature before publishing nature. That is very well said. It's a quote that I'm going to borrow from you and use the next time they call me to a university to talk. But
Okay.
when I say youth, what is the first word that comes to mind? They're all young people. They're all aspiring to become scientists tomorrow. What is the first word that comes to mind when I say youth?
Innocent.
Innocence. And when I say India, we're all from India. So what's the message for India?
Oh, there's a big country, a lot of people, and they are very successful here in the US. A lot of Indian scientists. I also work with Vasanta Srikantan, and I learn, the religion and other things, the customs from her, and so I greatly appreciate the contribution you have to science. Yeah.
To science. And the last one, when this is your first time when we are speaking on the IM1 platform, what is your view about IM1 and about the young people who are watching you today?
Oh, I mean, that's a wonderful thing, what you are doing, and it is for their benefit. And, they will think about what we talk and then open their eyes and minds, and maybe if one or two will be influenced and positively by that, it will be already we achieve our goals, to help them to navigate, because as I mentioned, there are so many distractions in around. For my time, it was go to the library, finding a paper took time, but here everything in front of them, the lectures in front of them, and then make sure that they focus, forget those TikTok and other things, forget it.
Forget it. And they have Dr. Katalin Karikó in front of them. So what more do we need? We've got a living inspiration in front of them. But if you've not read, as we conclude today's session, I must tell you, if you've not read Breaking Through, you've seen Breaking Through live with Dr. Katalin Karikó out here. But if you've not read the book, please read the book. It's breaking through my life in science. And honestly, as I was preparing for the conversation, I had a chance of going through it. And quite honestly, it's one of the best books that I've read. Yes, that's the copy of the book.
Yes, it is an American edition. There are
Right.
different ones. There are 16 languages, actually. The latest one in Farsi in Iran and in Japanese, Chinese, out.
And your life and the many adversities that you've dealt with and yet stayed so stoic make me it brings to mind Marcus Aurelius's quote, which says, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. I think that is what you've been able to miraculously do. You've been able to live that quote. You've blocked out the noise, and you've created major breakthroughs, not just for COVID and mRNA, but in various other fields, which now will be utilized in order to cure the world and make it a better place. But here's wishing you the very best on your journey to create a vaccine against stupidity, because I agree that that is the one that we need the most. For spending so much time with young minds who are only learning, thank you very much, because that is what is needed more than most. Thank you on behalf of all of those who see this conversation live and even otherwise.